So originally we just speculated in the dark who the final boss of the War Within is, but now we have actually determined in our storyline of 11.0. We have very strong evidence for the remaining two patches as well. We got Goblin hints, we got a place called Renilash, we got a newly discovered Light Emperor on a new continent we will be visiting soon, as well as most importantly developments on what appears to be the fifth old god that we've been talking about for years now. Even more importantly, we got information on who Xel'Adet is and what she's doing, so right now we can actually talk about the final boss of the War Within with actual evidence. So who is going to be the ultimate big bad of this new WoW expansion? If you guys want to buy Total War, Elder Scrolls, or any other game, you can get them at great prices with my Gamivo link. You can also get anything Warcraft related, gift cards and software, and all below market prices. Best of all, if you add my code DORON, you can get an even bigger discount, so make sure to check out my link in the description and get some amazing deals with Gamivo. So realistically, it has actually been quite a while since we've had one big bad that we knew that we will fight right off at the start, and that was really only Deathwing and the Lich King. Most of the time, we knew kinda what the threat was, but the final boss ended up being someone entirely different or someone entirely new. With the World Soul Saga though, this is pretty much following the exact same trend. We are aware that the Void and the Titans are going to be the overarching threats of the saga, but it is hard to say who will be the actual final boss. Early on, when the expansion was announced, I was saying that Xel'Adet could be the final boss of the War Within, the Void Lords or Ashara for Midnight, and the Titans or Sargeras for the Last Titan, but it is just way too much speculation. It is hard to predict anything really that far in advance. Luckily for the War Within, the alpha just ended, showing us all the zones. We data mined our storyline for 11.0, we got some hints for 11.1 and 11.2, so right now we can kinda more accurately talk about who will actually be the final boss. First, most important thing is an interview that Blizzard did that you might have missed a few years back, and that is that they talked about stopping the big bad villain and then on to the next type expansions, and they promised to do pretty much exactly what they're doing right now with the World Soul Saga, which is expansions being more akin to gigantic patches and seamlessly working with one another. So the true big bad will be shown in the Last Titan at the end of the saga, but we are going to get someone for the War Within. Also, a good thing about the saga so far is that it doesn't seem to be based on one big bad like the Jailer, but really the entire cosmos as a whole, so multiple threats are coming for Azeroth. But technicalities aside, let us talk about who is actually going to be the final boss of the War Within. Now, to discuss this, I will have to spoil a few things, pretty much the entire storyline of 11.0, but it's really not that big of a deal. It's a pretty cookie-cutter storyline so far with nothing really that groundbreaking happening, so it's nothing really crazy going on. In Khazakar, we're dealing with the Earthen and how they work. We're uniting with the Izarati, which are going to be our main allies together with the Earthen, and we are dealing with a Nerubian civil war, also allying with some of the Nerubians. Now, some really interesting lore from the alpha that we got a few days ago is that the Nerubians are actually connected to Azul Nerub in Northrend. We have a memory of King Anub'arak desperately pleading for the Queen to send her forces to Northrend as they're losing the war against the Scourge. It appears they're a part of the same empire despite the ruling dynasties being different, but the Queen shuns Anub'arak, doesn't send help, and the War of the Spider ends as you may know. The King Anub'arak falls, gets converted, becomes the right hand of Arthas. However, quite a few Nerubians value their independence and they don't like the Harbinger and what she's doing. That is essentially the main story of 11.0, us battling the Harbinger, aligned queen of the Nerubians. Now, seeing that Midnight very likely won't be announced this year, it is almost certain that the War Within is going to be a 2-patch expansion akin to Dragonflight, with the final boss being in 11.2. So far we actually have some very interesting setups and evidence, and we could predict the next 2 patches with some actual evidence. As I had previously speculated, we have very strong hints that we're going to be seeing Undermine and that there will be a huge new land with the goblins. Seeing that we seem to have explored Khazakar already in 11.0, if we get a goblin patch, it is likely that 11.2 will be a new zone as well. So far we got 2 hints for the next 2 zones. One is that we keep getting constant mentions of Kadesh, the fallen planet of the Ethereals, one destroyed by Dimensius the Old Devouring, the same Void Lord that is actually the master of Xel'Adet, and that has been confirmed in the alpha. We're getting a lot of Ethereals involved. We learned that Kadesh had the same visions as Azeroth is getting. Personally, I think this is going to be saved for mid Midnight, or maybe even a raid. The other hint though is this Light Emperor from the other side of Azeroth. I don't want to repeat myself a million times, check out my full previous video for all the detailed hints we got on them, but quickest summary possible, these Arathi arrived here 15 years ago. They were sent by a very powerful light devoted emperor of the new Arathi Empire from a land beyond the Storming Sea, so potentially the other side of Azeroth. He initially got the same vision as Anduin, and he envisioned a light and void final battle in a place called Renilash, but the expedition got teleported to the light crystal Beledar instead. Now, one key thing to note is that the expedition originally contained a contingent of mages that were meant to open a portal so that the Emperor could actually potentially access the zone. So this expedition was definitely not meant to be isolated as it is right now, but they all ended up dying in the crash. I mean, they literally just ran out of mages. Now, obviously a bit of a spoiler, but Dalaran, the city of mages, crashes right into Khazlagar, and pretty much all the mages that taught everyone how to open portals and we ally with these Arathi, it seems very likely that we are going to open a portal soon and that we are going to be meeting with the Light Emperor. So, thus far from the patch content, we got goblins, we got Karesh, which I don't really think is likely now, and we got the Arathi Empire on a new hidden continent. Goblins, I think are just going to be some filler content, maybe some Azerite, Old God, Void involvement, but the Arathi continent could actually be major development that will span across multiple expansions. We don't know if this Emperor is going to be good or not, but it is possible that at the end of the expansion that envisioned the Light and the Void battle in Renilash, it may happen actually at the end of War Within, like we lose that battle and then the actual Void invasion happens in Quel'Thalas. So one of the bosses we could be envisioning, the final boss of the War Within, it could be in this place called Renilash that was mentioned by the Light Emperor, and he could potentially be involved in this as well. Now, the other elephant in the room, the other gigantic hint is that possible 5th Old God we got from the mural in the alpha. Once again, check out my full video on all the symbolism because it's super crazy. However, we found what appears to be the 5th lost Old God in a mural on a Nerubian wall. Nerubians appear to be sacrificed to him, and a suspicious void crystal is next to him as well. If this is ancient history, this might be that 5th Old God that was defeated by the other Old Gods like Y'Shaarj and Azot, hence the black blood that is all over Khazlagar, the Old God blood. Also, the crystal may have originally been a void crystal or corrupted into the void in ancient history. This means that the finale of the War Within will very likely be based on the crystal and the 5th Old God. Here's the thing, Xal'atath is still, even at this point, a likely strong candidate for a final boss of the expansion. The reason is because she outsmarts us in the pre-patch and she messes up Dalaran. Then throughout 11.0 we tried to assassinate her multiple times but we fail, which might be a setup for like the final battle where we actually face off against her like on even ground. However, recently we got some interesting hints on who Xal'atath is. It is very much possible she was actually involved together with Dimensius on destroying Karesh in ancient history, the Ethereal Homeworld, and that her goal is to actually bring him to Azeroth like she brought Dimensius to Karesh. Thus far, we only know the Void will invade in Midnight. I mean, we can't really predict whether Xal'atath will survive in the next expansion. So obviously, lots of talk in different directions, but based on the current info, in conclusion, it is very likely that the final boss of the War Within is going to be Void based. Maybe something in Renilash where we ally with the Light Emperor, maybe the 5th Old God revived through the artifact, or us actually fighting Xal'atath. Remember, we still don't know fully what Xal'atath is. She's not an Old God, that was confirmed, but she's also not a Void Elf. She could literally be a huge monstrosity in her true form. The Darkheart artifact is definitely going to be involved. She seems to have gathered Galakrond in Dragonfight. She then went to Ulduar in the pre-patch, possibly to get something from Yogg-Saron, so it is possible she could use this essence to revive the 5th Old God we saw on the wall to like complete the awakening of Azeroth. This could actually be possible because if this guy would be the only one that was defeated by his own and not us or the Titans, it could mean that he could actually get revived because the Old Gods didn't really defeat him fully like the Titans or we did. Overall though, very likely the War Within final battle is not going to be some groundbreaking fight, definitely not a filler like Farak in Dragonfight, but it's definitely just going to be a setup for the Void invasion in Quel'Thalas. It's not going to be like some saga ending thing. I could envision us defeating the 5th Old God or Xal'atath and then her outsmarting us for the last time to actually bring Dimensius the Old Devouring into Azeroth in the expansion that will be coming after. Thank you for watching. Check out why Sargeras actually stabbed Azeroth that we learned recently by clicking on the screen, and check out my video on the cult of Mithras and Roman mythology by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time!